Today we are going to start chapter number 2, that is Thinking Like an Economist from the book Principles of Economics. Introduction: How economists think and how we can follow economists in our business environment. Basically, economics trains you to think in terms of alternatives because different alternatives are available to individuals and one has to decide which alternative to choose and which is best for your business and economy. It also trains you to evaluate the cost of individual and social choices. You can compare the cost of different options available to you at individual level as well as at society level. Moreover, economics also trains you to examine and understand how certain events and issues are related. How can you relate different issues? We have already discussed about inflation and unemployment in our previous lecture. Here, economics trains you how you can relate these two phenomena. So, economics helps us to develop and understand relations among different parameters in the economy. Now, what is the economic way of thinking? How economists think? Basically, economists think analytically and objectively. Economists have certain objectives to achieve and they use analytical methods to achieve those objectives. Moreover, economists also use scientific method to explain the phenomena or to explain the issues. Here, in scientific method, we start from observation. We observe, develop theories, then comes the collection of data, then we analyze that data and come up with the result in which we explain that the theory which we develop is true or not. Now comes the scientific method, that is observation, theory and more observation. In scientific method, we start from the first step, that is observation, in which we observe the situation. Then we develop theories and then we collect the data, analyze that data and come up with the result in which we explain that the theory which we develop is true or not. So, in scientific method, we move step by step. We start from observing the issues, then theories are developed, then collect information or data and analyze the data, and then in the end we try to prove the theory that whether it is true or not. Next is the role of assumptions. The role of assumptions in economics. As you know that economists make assumptions in order to make the real world easier to understand. So, all of the models developed are theories by the economists. Those are based on assumptions. For example, when we talk about international trade or when we talk about open economy, just to simplify the problem, just to understand the problem and just to make easier to understand the problem, we assume that the world consists of only two countries and two goods, just for our simplicity. That is country 1 and country 2 and good 1 and good 2. So the trade can take place between between two countries and that represent the whole world. It is unrealistic, but it is simple to learn and gives useful insights about the real world. So, economists use different assumptions to answer different questions like if we would like to explain the relationship between money and inflation, so we have to make certain assumptions. If we want to explain the relationship between growth and poverty, again, economists have to make assumptions to explain the relationship between poverty and growth. So, the role of assumptions is very strong in economics. Most of the models are based on assumptions developed by economists. Hence, the role of assumptions is considered to be very important in economics. Next comes economic models. Two models will be explained to you to understand how the world behaves, how the economy works. So I'm explaining two models here. First is the circular flow diagram and second is the production possibilities frontier. Coming to the first one, that is the circular flow diagram. The circular flow diagram is a visual model of the economy that shows how dollars flow through markets among households and firms. There are two types of actors in the simplified circular flow diagram. First is household and the second is firm. Here, households and firms are in two markets. That is the market for goods and services. Particularly, households are looking for goods and services, and there is a market for factors of production, that is labor, input, etc., that the firms need to produce goods and services. You have two actors, that is firms and households. Households own the factor of production. They sell and rent them to firms for income. Households are also consumers and they buy and consume goods and services. Now, firms buy or hire factors of production and use them to produce goods and services and sell those goods and services in the market. Next comes factors of production. Inputs used to produce goods and services, land, labor and capital, they all comes under factors of production. Here comes the circular flow diagram. First of all, on the right hand side, here you have households and on the left hand side of this diagram, you have firms. Let's look at the arrows separately. In this diagram, the green arrows, these green arrows, they represent the flow of income and payments, and the red arrows or the orange, you are seeing them in orange color, they represent the flow of goods and services, including services of factors of production. Let's start with households. What households do here? Look at the orange lines here. Household members provide labor, land, and capital as market for the factors of production to the firms. People get up and they go to work. They may sell their land to a new factory. The firms in turn use those factors of production in producing goods and services which they sell in the markets for goods and services that are bought by households. Now, going in reverse, households spend their money in the market for goods and services, which provides revenues for firms, which the firms then use portions of those revenues for profit, and of course, also wages and rent to obtain markets production of markets factor of production which go to the households as their income. So around and around we go. Households provide the labors for firms and the firms provides goods and services. The households buy the goods and services, they spend those and provide revenue for the firms and in turn income for the households. You can also see from the diagram these arrows. Here households spend their money for purchasing goods and services from the markets, and the money they spend will be collected by firms in terms of revenues. Again, firms give wages, rents and profits to markets of production, and this is considered as income for the households. And on the second side, households provide land, labor and capital to the markets for factor of production. Markets provide factors of production to the firms where the firms produce and sell those goods and services. Then these goods and services will be sold in markets for goods and services, and from here these goods and services will be bought by households. So this is the circular flow diagram that represents the flow of inputs and outputs and also the flow of dollars from firms to households and vice versa.